Hello there and welcome to the Breakfast Rundown with me, Farzan. It's Monday, the 5th of August. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and let's start off with some amazing news for all Sri Lankan fans. That Sri Lanka's Aruna Darshana made history last night after he qualified for the semi-finals of the men's 400 meters sprint at the Paris Olympics. Now, his outstanding performance in the preliminary round catapulted him into the semi-finals. Now, Aruna Darshana is set to compete in the semi-finals. That's at tomorrow at 11:05 p.m. Sri Lankan time. Now, last night, Aruna Darshana from Sri Lanka took part in the 5th preliminary round in the 400 meters sprint, and he came in third in that round, clocking a timing of 44.9 seconds. Now let's have a look at this race before we move on to more details.
Go Scotch. Nene on the inside, the South African. Running well, the youngster. And watch for Morales Williams coming back into his run.
Well, there you can see Sri Lanka's Aruna Darshana competing in the 400 meters sprint. Now, this performance by Aruna Darshana is also his personal best. Now, he also becomes the first Sri Lankan athlete to move into the semi-finals of an Olympic event in the 400 meters race. So, Aruna Darshana has made history for all Sri Lankans, something to be proud of, where a sprinter from Sri Lanka has made it to the semi-finals of an Olympic event.
That's a whole generation of runners. Actually, one that probably he came in with, and now ones that he has inspired to have a career that long. And I thought was in this wonderful stadium that if you go to Grenada and run at a really big meet, you go to Karani James Stadium. Is how much they think of that guy. And yeah, just here's a guy. The other thing about him, right, is he knows how to run the rounds. He knows he's going to have to do it 3 times. Really good shape. And then, as I kind of told you, Morales Williams, he comes off the turn and he loses form. You're like, that guy is just beat, and yet somehow through all those machinations and all that arm waving, he manages to finish strong.
Just had to insert just a little bit of pressure here in the last.
While you're witnessing the visuals of this amazing achievement by a Sri Lankan, let's talk about it further. Now, the Paris Olympics is underway, and Sri Lanka's Aruna Darshana clocked a timing of 44.9 seconds to qualify into the men's 400 meters semi-finals at the Paris Olympics. Now, moving on to news from the local arena. Now, the clock is ticking for the September 21st presidential election. Now, today is the deadline for anyone wishing to apply for the postal vote to submit their applications. Now, the Election Commission says that if one has not made an application for postal voting, one can do so by visiting the respective district election office and submit the application that will be reviewed later on, making it eligible to apply for postal voting. Now, the 2024 presidential election is on the 21st of September. Now, a total of 14 presidential hopefuls have placed their security bonds to contest the presidential election. Now, according to the statistics, 8 of them are from recognized political parties, and 5 of them are from other political groups or are contesting as independent candidates. Now, on the 15th, from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., the Election Commission will start accepting nominations for the presidential election. Now, are you wondering if you are eligible to vote, or are you registered? Here's what you have to do. You need to visit www.elections.gov.lk. That's the website of the Election Commission. Select your preferred language and then enter your national identity card number or NIC number and the registration district. And then you can see whether your voter registration is confirmed or not. If you're not, all you have to do is visit the local election office and make the relevant application. Now, sticking with elections, everyone is wondering who is going to support whom. Already, many factions, many MPs and ministers have announced who they would be backing for the presidential election. But the attention now lies with the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress. The The head of the SLMC, that's Rauf Hakim, who is a part of the Samagi Jan Alliance as well, has announced that within the next 72 hours, his party would discuss and decide on who they would be supporting. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
High Command has met today and has taken a decision to endorse the candidacy of Mr. Sajith Premadasa for presidency, subject to a discussion on issues concerning our community and the country. Those issues had been discussed at length by party's High Command, and I have been instructed to ensure that Mr. Sajith Premadasa should give his concurrence to those main issues that we would place before him. We would do the discussions within the next 72 hours with him, and subject to those discussions, our decision to endorse Mr. Sajith Premadasa as the presidential candidate for SLMC's support is being confirmed.
Well, those were the comments made by the leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, Rauf Hakim. Now, everyone is looking forward to see what kind of decision that they would be reaching, and also who are the other presidential candidates who would be coming forward. Over the weekend, we had many stepping forward, and right now there are a total of 14 who have placed their security bonds to contest the September 21st presidential election. Now, as the preparations are underway for this much anticipated presidential election, the Election Commission in Sri Lanka has summoned the heads of media institutions in the country today for a special meeting. Now, the chairman of the Election Commission, R.M.L. Ratnayaka, speaking to our colleagues earlier in the day, said that this meeting is centered around the preparations for the upcoming election. Now, in addition to the session with the media heads, the Election Commission will also be having a meeting with key government officials as well. Now, they include the heads of state media, the secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media, as well as the Department of Government Information, also with regard to the preparations of the September 21st presidential election. Now, you might be wondering, while all these preparations are underway, what about security measures? Well, Sri Lanka Police has announced that more than 50,000 police officers from its police force will be deployed for security purposes for the September 21st presidential election. Now, this announcement comes as part of a comprehensive plan to protect the polling stations and also the voting process on that day and the run-up to the election. Now, the exact number of officers that will be deployed is yet to be determined. However, there are certain factors that, according to police sources, that will determine this figure of police officers that will be deployed. That's the density of polling stations and voter turnout, etc. However, Sri Lanka Police has confirmed that they will be deploying more than 50,000 police officers for security purposes for the presidential election. Now, while all these developments are taking place in Sri Lanka with the run-up to the presidential election, our neighborhood, or the South Asian neighbors, are paying close attention to what is happening to Bangladesh. That's right. Now, you might recall that several weeks ago, mass protests erupted in Bangladesh over a government employment quota system. Now, these protests led to deaths and injuries as well, a internet blackout in Bangladesh, and then there were censorships from Bangladesh where you could not get information, and there were curfews as well. Now, the High Commission in Sri Lanka has confirmed to Newsfirst that the Sri Lankans who are living in Bangladesh have not been affected by the protests and turmoil brewing up in that country. Now, according to official reports, there are around 2,500 Sri Lankans living in Bangladesh. Now, the High Commission said that the Sri Lankan community as a whole is safe and unaffected. Now, among the Sri Lankans who are in Bangladesh are 9 students pursuing higher education. Now, 8 of them are safe at the Chittagong Medical College hostel, while the other is also safe with the relatives living there. Now, just to give you a background about this whole protest incident in Bangladesh. Now, in recent weeks, protests erupted in Bangladesh against, as I mentioned earlier, against a government quota system for employment. Now, the protests were ignited by students, and then after the Supreme Court of Bangladesh delivered a ruling, the students called off their protests, giving time for the government to implement the measures that they had promised with regard to this quota system, and also several other issues including unemployment as well as the cost of living and taxes. However, as the government had failed, according to these student protesters, to meet the demands or meet the deadline of implementing these measures, protests ignited once again. And now this time around, they are demanding that Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, and her entire government step down with immediate effect. Now, at the same time, 91 people have been killed in these renewed protests that erupted in recent days. Now, among the 91 people who were killed are 13 police officers. Now, according to the Dhaka Tribune, in the area known as Sirajganj, protesters stormed into a police station and they had beaten to death 13 police officers. Now, however, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government in Bangladesh is saying that the protesters are not student activists. They say that these are criminals and they should be dealt with accordingly. Now, according to police sources from Bangladesh, the injuries are in hundreds. More than 200 people have been injured, with 91 so far reported dead in the recent protests. Now, to quell these protests, the Bangladeshi police officers have been using stun grenades, tear gas, and also rubber bullets. Now, some of these reports that are coming out from Bangladesh cannot be independently verified as well. Now, in Dhaka, demonstrators had clashed with police along with members of the Amawi League in various parts of the capital, leaving several people dead and many, many more injured. Now, what are the demands of these protesters? Right now, these protesters are demanding that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina step down immediately, and at the same time, measures be taken to award government jobs according to the agreed quota system in Bangladesh. Now, Hasina has said that those engaged in these protests are engaging in acts of sabotage, and the destruction in the name of protests can no longer be tolerated. Now, in Bangladesh, authorities have blocked internet access and imposed a shoot-on-sight curfew as well. In the latest reports coming out from Bangladesh, around 11,000 people have been arrested in recent weeks over these protests. Now, moving on to another report from the region, now this time from the Indian Ocean. Now, two fishing boats with 9 Sri Lankan fishermen have encountered an accident in the Indian Ocean, approximately 300 kilometers from Seychelles. Now, these two vessels have issued distress calls and are waiting for help. Now, the vessels have been identified as Blue Ocean 2 and Blue Ocean 6. Now, these two vessels had set sail from the Dik Order port on the 30th of June. Now, their destination is Somalia. Now, here's the story. Now, these two boats are part of a fishing operation led by a Dubai-based businessman who had purchased these boats from the Sri Lankan fishermen to engage in fishing activities off the coast of Somalia. Now, the unexpected issue that these two boats had encountered had left these fishermen stranded in the middle of the sea, without food, without fuel, and without water. Now, the Sri Lankan embassy in Seychelles confirmed that they are in touch with these fishermen and also the Seychelles authorities to dispatch aid for these stranded fishermen. Now, a senior officer said that the Seychelles Coast Guard has also deployed a vessel to that area in order to provide these fishermen with food and water, and also to help them get back to shore. Now, according to these officials, the fishermen are being also monitored into their health status as well. Now, we will be bringing you all these developments as and when they unfold on Newsfirst and also on our digital platforms. And that brings an end to this morning's edition of the Breakfast Rundown. But stay with Newsfirst. Follow us on our digital platforms and our website, that's www.newsfirst.lk, to keep yourself updated with the very latest. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Zulfiq Farzan. Have yourself a wonderful day.